What's good? What's good? What's happening? You already know what it is. It's your boy On1. Shout out to the On1 gang. Man, hey, this is something new I'm bringing to the channel. Doing some reactions, man. You know what I'm saying? And this one right here, man. 10 scariest confessions caught on tape. Somebody been snitching. Somebody been snitching. But, hey, this is going to be the first one, man. You know what I'm saying? We're going to get better and better at this thing. But, hey, shit. Hey, I need to stop cursing too. Y'all ain't heard that. But anyway, let's get into it, man. Let's see who's snitching, who telling what. Let's see, man.
Police detectives are allowed to use a wide variety of mind games to convince suspects to tell them everything they know. And these advanced tactics are designed to get all of the details until every last memory has been squeezed dry.
Yeah,
most of the confessions on this list came only after hours of intense questioning, though some were willing to fully recall all of their wrongdoings, as if they were fond memories. Number 10. Daniel Wozniak is broke and needs money for his wedding, so he comes up with an unlikely solution that's twisted, sadistic, and downright bizarre. He asks his friend Sam to help him move some boxes over at his place, and instead takes his life. This is what Daniel tells the police when arrested a short while later.
I'm crazy and I did it.
You did what?
I told him that I needed to move some stuff from the theater. I said, you need to bend down and help me lift this thing up. And when he bent down, I grabbed the gun.
And your motive behind killing Sam was?
Money and insanity.
Money and insanity.
Money and insanity.
The plan was to take Sam's ATM card and drain his entire life savings to pay for Daniel's marriage. Daniel disposes of his friend in a nearby
you can
park.
only get $500
he then goes to Sam's apartment and uses
ATM
Sam's phone to invite Sam's girlfriend Julie over. When Julie arrives, she finds Daniel waiting outside instead of her boyfriend. Daniel says he has something important to show her and lets them inside with Sam's keys.
Stupid ass.
Went back out into the hallway and then said, oh, by the way, did you see this in Sam's bed? And I said, lean over, look at it right there. When she was leaned over, I put 2 bullets in the back of her head.
Daniel was obviously out of his mind by this point, but here's what he was thinking.
He
hoped that the police would mistakenly conclude that Sam ended Julie's life and then went on the run. The deception didn't work as planned, and he was quickly taken into custody.
I was good. I reached a point to where I couldn't even believe that I was doing this. I don't know.
Number 9. Jeremy Cancel was 24 years old and homeless when he saw a Pace University student named Kevin Prevea. Returning home from a bar one morning, Kevin asked Jeremy to sell him something, and then Jeremy agreed to go up to the apartment where together they watched Saw. When the student passed out a little while later, Jeremy started pillaging all of his belongings. Then he suddenly got another idea.
I grabbed a plastic bag and I put it in his mouth, and I held his nose with a pillow over his face, with my knee on him, and I finished strangulating him.
Jeremy claimed that his main motivation for doing this was purely boredom. He showed absolutely no remorse throughout his trial and reportedly laughed in reaction to the court's imposed sentence of 25 years to life. Number 8.
Damn, that's crazy.
Linda Stein was an extremely wealthy New Yorker who had once co-managed a famous punk band called the Ramones decades ago. She eventually switched careers from the music industry to the real estate business and hired someone named Natavia Lowry to be her personal assistant. But when Natavia took around $30,000 from her boss, Linda confronted her about it in person, and that's when things got completely out of control. Natavia grabbed a heavy walking stick from Linda during the middle of the argument, and in her words,
so I took it and it's like I just hit her with it.
Where about her body?
Like right here. And I did it like a couple more times.
Though she may look remorseful now, Natavia was so angry that she doesn't remember how many times she used the walking stick before regaining her composure. By the time it was done, the wealthy socialite was on the ground and no longer moving.
That's crazy. That one was so mad, bro. She didn't even know how many times she even hit the girl on top of the head.
To a minimum of 32 years for her actions. Number 7. Alonso Perez is suspected of taking another man's life
North Las
and
Vegas
now finds
Police
himself
Department.
inside of a stuffy North Vegas Police Department interrogation room. He looks around nervously for a while and then decides to make one last effort at escaping. Thinking fast, Alonso leverages all of his body weight against the cuffs and snaps free. He remains seated for a long time and tries to make it appear as though he is still shackled. I think his original plan was to jump the next person who entered, but then he looks at the ceiling and gets a better idea. Alonso stands up and easily removes a square drywall panel.
You already in there, man. You might as well RIP the game.
And then makes his way through the rafters. Amazingly, he was able to drop out the ceiling into an empty hallway and quietly leaves through the back door. Authorities were able to recapture him 4 days later, and they are now seeking capital punishment. Number 6.
He got 4 days free
when
though.
A Florida man named Checkington Sinclair discovers a text message from his wife's ex-boyfriend on her phone. The two get into a serious argument, and Checkington ends up doing the unthinkable. He calls the police 1 hour later and lets them know exactly what he's done to his wife, who is in the bedroom.
A murder has been committed.
Oh, a murder has been committed? By who?
By me, ma'am.
By you?
Yes, ma'am.
Bam.
Shot her in the head.
What's most concerning is the even tone in Checkington's voice. There's almost no emotion whatsoever as he makes his confession. According to Checkington's story, his wife became aggressive and he did what needed to be done to stop her. He was found guilty of his actions 1 year later, and his trial sentencing started in February 2017. I couldn't find anything beyond that, so maybe the final sentence is still being debated in court. Number 5. 25-year-old John Paul Selesky was angry at the world when he decided to randomly take the life of an innocent jogger one day in Fort Smith, Arkansas. When police pry for details, John describes the jogger's initial reaction after what happened.
And then he drowned, and I shot him again and again.
John's exact motivation seemed to vary throughout the police interview. He seems angry at times, but then seems sad and talks about how much wrong there is in the world. During this part of the interview, it seems like he thinks ending a person's life is helpful because of how miserable the world is. He was sentenced to life behind bars without any chance of parole.
I kind of missed that just now because I got thrown off by the food, but hey man.
2008, doing some crazy shit, man. Child named Christian Romero was accused of taking the lives of his father and another man in their Arizona apartment.
Shot him twice, and after I shot him the one time, he was still moving, so I think I shot him again.
In the state of Arizona, anyone 8 years old and up can be legally charged with an offense. So believe it or not, there was an interrogation. Police were able to get Christian to confess to pulling the trigger on the two adults, though his testimony remains controversial due to his young age. Some people say that the 8-year-old didn't understand the interrogation and simply felt pressured to say what the police wanted to hear. Christian was sentenced to a ward where he remained until he was 15, at which point he was placed in a foster home and allowed to attend public school. I couldn't find anything else about exactly why he did this, so if anyone knows more details about this mysterious case, then please let me know what caused Christian Romero to commit such a heinous act on that day.
He was 8 years old, man. I don't think he knew no better. He ain't know no better.
Elizabeth Wettlaufer was a hospital nurse who sometimes cared for elderly patients out of their homes. Now she is talking with a police detective after doing what the voices were telling her to do.
Voice or whatever it wasn't a voice in my head, it was a voice in here. And when I would do it afterwards, I would hear like a laughter in my chest.
Elizabeth goes on to explain that she would hear a voice not in her head, but somewhere deep in her stomach. This voice would encourage her to overdose her patients with insulin. When she did as she was told, the voice would howl with laughter and move from her stomach up into her chest for a while before moving back down and requesting for more. She said that she personally didn't like giving her patients too much insulin. She didn't like how they would shake and moan throughout the night until they passed away clutching their sheets. though sometimes she admits that she would watch with some degree of curiosity. But apparently this was not Elizabeth's choice. God was directing her to do this, and she didn't question his divine plan at first. After a while, however, she thought that maybe it was the devil tricking her into believing she was doing God's work, and this thought worried her deeply.
Because part of me had started to believe.
Hey man, I believe in that shit. I believe in it. I don't know if she telling the truth or not, but I do believe in, you know what I'm saying, people that be hearing voices and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? I think that stuff be real. You know what I'm saying? You only gonna, and people that you either gonna believe it or you don't, but I believe it. I mean, the people that know it's real, that it's happening to. It ain't never happened to me, but I know some people, and I believe them. You know what I'm saying? That's crazy.
That it was
happy they didn't tell me to do no crazy shit like that though.
And part of me thought it might be God with a purpose through my life.
Of course, the hospital didn't know any of this was happening in her head because she appeared relatively normal on the outside. In fact, the hospital was planning to move her into the kids' ward to operate their insulin pumps. She quickly resigned when she heard about this change because she knew she would lose control and probably do something to a small child. Even in her delusional state, Elizabeth knew she couldn't follow instructions to do that to a small child from anyone, not even God. She planned to flee the country, but she decided to check herself into the psych ward instead. She spent 3 weeks under evaluation and said enough to her appointed psychiatrist during this time to raise concern. The psych ward alerted the authorities, who took her in for questioning. She proceeded to describe in detail how she ended the lives of 8 patients and attempted to do the same to many more. In 2017, she was given life behind bars with parole eligibility within 25 years. Number 2.
What?
And how did you murder him?
With
and she got parole in 25 years.
Head twice.
Okay.
3 shots were fired, 1 missed.
Jared Murray was a student at East Central University in Ada, Oklahoma, who everyone could tell was a little off. One day, he asked a fellow student for a ride to Walmart in exchange for $20. The student gladly agreed and Jared got inside. Somewhere along the way, Jared pulled a small firearm and began playing with it. He told his driver to go to the nearby town of Asher instead of Walmart.
Why did all of a sudden did you decide that you needed to go to Asher?
Because I was planning to take him out into the country and kill him.
During the long ride, Jared talked with his companion about life in general and many other philosophical subjects. He seemed to enjoy toying with the young man's mind all the while. At some point, Jared unchambered his firearm and gave both the firearm and the clip to the driver to make him feel at ease. Sometime later, Jared took out a second firearm from his pocket. He quickly loaded it and pulled the trigger 3 times. He got out of the slow-moving car and let it stop into a tree. Then he checked his prey.
I heard him gurgling. I'm not sure if that was a physiological or physical process after death, but I thought that he might have still lived through that somehow because he was gurgling, so I shot him again and then shoved him down in the ditch.
Throughout the interview, the sheriff repeatedly seeks a motive as to what caused Jared to do this. He learned that Jared had absolutely no grudge with this person and only chose them after playing video games together 2 weeks prior. The sheriff searches for some shred of humanity in Jared, but time and time again finds none. He was found not guilty by reason of insanity and is now institutionalized. Before we get to number 1, my name is Chills, and I hope you're enjoying my narration. If you're curious about what I look like in real life, then go to my Instagram at DylanIsChillinYT and tap that follow button to find out. I'm currently number 1. On April 16th, 2007, Sung Hui Cho went on a rampage at Virginia Tech that ended the lives of 32 students. First, he entered West Ambler Johnston Hall at around 7 in the morning and quickly ended the lives of 2 students. As emergency services and police arrived, the deranged student snuck away and changed into clean clothes. He then went to the local post office and mailed a package to NBC News. This is the video he sent shortly before going back on campus and ending the lives of over 24 other innocent students later that day.
You had 100 billion chances in the ways to have avoided today, but you decided to spill my blood. You forced me into a corner and gave me only one option. I did it for them. I did it to make you stop what you did to me, to the future generations of the weak and the defenseless.
As you can see, his best attempt to logically explain himself comes out as a strange, semi-religious rant that is impossible for anyone to fully understand. Even with a camera pointed directly at his face, he cannot clearly tell anyone why he did this, though he seems desperate for the audience to understand.
Yo, man. Yo, okay. Don't be snitching out there. Don't snitch on yourself. Anyway, man, hey, if y'all got some suggestions for some videos, you know what I'm saying, drop it in the comment section below or send it to the the Instagram is right there. Send it to the gram, man. This is the first one, man. We're gonna get better at this thing. But hey, man, the first reaction. Don't be snitching. Snitching is for, we ain't gonna say all that. I holler at y'all, man. Appreciate everybody for coming in, tuning in, hitting the like button, subscribe button, all that good stuff, man. We're gonna come back with some more content later. Peace.